Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba-ba. All right. Promoter 101. 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 Promoter 101.
This is Alex Hodges, Omar Al-Jilani,
John Pleater,
Mark Norman,
Noel Argest,
Ted Hynek,
Mike Mowry,
Joel Pryor
on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Check out Promoter 101, my favorite podcast.
Hello, beloved listeners. I've got a gift that's quite sublime. I'm so thrilled that you could be here. Yes, you've made it just in time. First, I must acknowledge, yes, I know this intro's quite intense, and it's for no particular reason, no. It doesn't make any sense, but that's besides the point. For today, I bring a podcast to you, featuring your lovable hosts, W. Luke Pierce and the Jew. This is a show of the highest caliber. Yes, it's second to none, and I am proud to present to you Promoter 101.
Well, hey, welcome back. This is Promoter 101, episode 88, and I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Luke Pierce. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well on this glorious day. We're recording this podcast a little bit early. Both you and I are on the road this week and excited to get into it. We've got an amazing episode ahead of us. We've got Silverback Artist Management's Jon Phillips and Live Nation Spain's Pino Sagliocco, plus 3 questions from the Broadberry's Lucas Fritz.
We'll break down the news of the week with Rolling Stones contributor Steve Knopper.
Looking forward to that.
Word of the week is get her done. Whenever you hear the words get her done, scream real loud.
Get her done. Drink.
It's Barry Dickens from ITB, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Do you want us to visit you? We can come record the podcast anywhere. You have a porta potty, conference, dorm room, whatever you want. Have us visit your retreat. We love hanging out with our listeners, and we're really desperate for your approval.
It's true, Dan. I can't walk down the street without having everybody like me so much. So it's really important that you guys stroke Dan and I's ego and make sure that we come and speak to your conference or to your classroom or wherever. We love groups of people and captive audiences that have to listen to us. Kind of like this podcast.
I'll be in Toronto on the 24th of July. That's IVM's Venue Connect 2018. It's the promoter agent panel and just a great lineup. Brian Hill, who just had his 50th birthday, surprise party for him last night. Congrats, Brian. APA's Ralph James will be there. Jason Zink from Emporium, the Franks Brothers Productions, Charlie Goldstone in the house, and Live Nation's legend, The Rock, Riley O'Connor. I'll be doing the moderating, and we'll record the whole thing for the podcast as well. So we'll have that up for you too.
Hear, hear. It's going to be a great time. If you're not registered for that conference, check it out, iavm.org. There's still a few passes left to register for that conference. Come check out Dan and the star-studded lineup for the promoter and agent panel on Tuesday, July 24th.
Catch up with us. You can shoot us an email anytime you want. It's steiny@promoter101.net. You can find us both there.
And, of course, we're all over Twitter. I'm at W. Luke Pierce. Dan's at The Jew. The show is at Promoter. That's not plural anymore. Promoter, singular, 101.
Actually, the plural one still works. So, have it your own way.
Follow them both. Just do both.
Do it. Do it.
Do it. Get her done.
Get her done. Everyone drinks.
My name is David Klein. I'm Justin Bieber's tour manager, and I'm on Promoter 101.
If you've missed any of our past podcasts, well, you're fucked. Just kidding. We always have them wherever you podcast. So check out our featured reissue this week, episode 46.
Episode 46 of Promoter 101, we had an amazing interview from Madison House Presents, Mike Luba, Jason Brandt, and Becca Life, sharing the story of the Forest Hill Stadium out in Queens, New York.
AG's Trevor Swanson is more than an agent. He's an entrepreneur on the move. He'll be joining us as well.
Plus, we had Cup, that's Paradigm's Jason Kupperman, sharing one of his all-time favorite stories. And Steiny was joined by a special co-host, John Topper, as they broke down the news of the week.
Don't you think it's about time you subscribe to the podcast already? We're here every week and we have the same discussion. Me and your mother are very disappointed in you that you haven't subscribed yet.
Just subscribe. It's a little button. Just click on it. It's easy.
Get her done.
Jim Glancy, Barry Presents on Promoter 101.
News of the week.
News of the week. We're excited to have Rolling Stone contributor Steve Knopper. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, what's up, Dan? How you been?
Good. A lot going on out there in the music industry. It's summer. What's on your plate?
The thing that has kind of been on my mind the last couple of days has been this news about XXXTentacion, the rapper. You know, he passed away the other day after kind of this tumultuous career and these charges of domestic violence and all this stuff. And then he was murdered in this bizarre incident. And as far as music news goes, that's the thing that I've been kind of paying attention to as some of this stuff comes out.
Certainly coming to a tragic end, super young in his life.
Yeah, it was such a weird story. I mean, last year he was part of this out of nowhere SoundCloud hip-hop deal, you know, where just all of a sudden these rappers were, many of them from Florida, who were kind of all produced by the same guy, or a lot of them were. Lil Pump was one of, there's a lot of different people. And he was one of those big stars. And for a while it looked like, I mean, he made really interesting music, and melodic and personal and interesting. And then all of a sudden it was like these charges came out where his girlfriend, or the woman he lived with, was talking about he kind of imprisoned her and all this terrible, terrible stuff. Just a couple weeks ago, the Miami New Times had a really interesting exclusive interview with him. And I was thinking, man, I wonder what's going to happen with this. I wonder if he'll continue making music. I wonder what's going to happen with these charges. And then he died. And it just, the whole thing happened so fast.
Crazy sad time in music when we lose somebody so young and so like cutting edge on the industry. And clearly the domestic violence stuff is really out there. It's just very complicated guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And charges were coming up in the context of the Me Too movement. And that is something that has been coming up a lot with R. Kelly and others in the music business. There was this whole issue a couple of weeks ago of Spotify having this new hate speech policy. And he and R. Kelly were the two artists that they kind of identified as removing from their playlist. But then they backtracked. Then Spotify said, well, actually, after all this industry criticism, we can't really make content decisions based on the character of the artist. That would just be a slippery slope. So then they, Daniel Ek and others from the company kind of walked back that policy.
Not a great list to be on the top of by any means.
No, that's right. That's right.
So Paul Simon announced his farewell tour has been out there for a while, but he just announced that he's playing his final show in Flushing Meadows, obviously out there by Queens, but his last performance sounds like forever. That's just a major icon going away.
Yeah, it is. I did a story on that earlier this year for Rolling Stone about how there's been so many retirement announcements this year. It was not only Paul, but also Elton John and Ozzy Osbourne, and Neil Diamond has Parkinson's and can't go on the road anymore, and Joan Baez. I mean, with all these heritage artists who once dominated the concert business leaving the stage, is this going to affect the business at large? My guess is you would say no, but it does seem like there will be at least temporarily a little bit of a dip there because of that, or a little bit of a concern, I should say.
Well, when it comes to the heritage artists like Neil Diamond and Paul Simon and Elton John, you got to figure there are only so many acts that are going to get our parents out to a concert, and they don't really care what the price of the ticket is anymore. If our folks are going to a show, they're going to spend the $3.50 a ticket for the best seat they can possibly get, because you can't take it with you. There's only a handful of artists that'll get them out of the house. There's not a lot of them anymore. So these are some fairly big guys. It's not necessarily those people, our folks, aren't going to go see Pearl Jam. That money's just not going to be spent on the industry anymore unless we figure out another way to pry that money out of their hands.
Yeah, I agree. And it's the top of the top. They can't last forever. I mean, the Rolling Stones have cut back on their number of dates over the last few years, although they still charge a lot for tickets and make a lot of money. Bono from U2 is younger, obviously, but he's had some health problems. These major acts that are commanding this kind of money, and like you say, the baby boom audiences who have the income to be able to pay the high ticket prices, they're not going to be around forever. I think the concert industry is going to have to figure out some way of dealing with that. I do think there's going to have to be probably a period of transition where you go from relying on the Stones and U2 to then relying on the younger acts, the Taylor Swifts and the Bruno Mars. I mean, maybe we're in that transition now, but it seems like we haven't quite gotten to the full blunt of it.
What else is out there that you're excited about?
Red Rocks has some interesting shows coming up that I'm thinking of going to. I'm really interested in this Steve Earle, Dwight Yoakam, and Lucinda Williams show that's coming.
They're calling it the LSD tour. How about embracing your 70s roots?
I know. I love that. I actually had this idea that, I love all three of those artists, but I think looking at Steve Earle and Dwight Yoakam specifically for a second, because they're easy to compare. They're sort of like rebel country artists from the 80s who are doing something different and continue to do so. I feel like Yoakam is the stronger singer, although I love Earle's voice, and I feel like Earle, perhaps, this is debatable, but he's the stronger songwriter, although I love Yoakam's songwriting. And I just always thought that Yoakam sings Earle would be a great concept for a tour. So maybe this is as close as we're going to get to that. And Lucinda is great as well.
I just kind of think the way they're billing it is like, hey, this is a concert I can go and trip acid with my mom. This is kind of the pitch. It's, I've never really talked to her about it, but maybe she'd be down. She certainly loves the artist. So maybe it'll be a whole bunch of kids like going to the show and tripping with their folks. It's a new generation bringing us all back to the 70s. What do you think?
That it's certainly possible. Let's try it while we still have them.
It could be really good counseling, or we could leave it needing some really serious counseling. But either way, it's definitely going to have an effect.
I agree.
Not that Promoter 101 advocates acid use.
Of course not.
Then again, not that we don't. What else is out there in the industry that you're excited about?
The Beyonce and Jay-Z album just came out the other day, and I actually haven't heard the album yet because on Sunday it was only on Tidal, which I don't subscribe to, and then I haven't had time to listen to it since it's come out on the other outlets. I did download it on iTunes, but it's been getting great reviews. I'm looking forward to listening to it. I think that's going to be a big deal this year.
That tour is running around the country this summer, so July 25th, it starts in Cleveland at First Energy Stadium, the home of the Cleveland Browns. Any other shows you're excited about for this summer?
Warped Tour is ending its run after 24 some years. And I just actually did a story that comes out in the next few days where I interviewed as many of the women who have performed on Warped Tour as I could over the years. But there's some interesting stuff. Joan Jett is going to play a couple of dates on Warped Tour, it looks like. Go see it while you still can. It's going to be hot.
Now, this summer, we're seeing a lot of the cooler bands step into stadiums for multiple dates. You're seeing Foo Fighters playing stadiums in a handful of markets. You're seeing Pearl Jam do multiples in some of the baseball parks across the country. And a lot of the bigger acts are popping in and out of the stadiums, including that Beyonce Jay-Z tour. Do you feel that concert experience is becoming more embraced by the fans than the arena show?
It does seem like that. It does seem like stadium tours just in the last 5-6 years have come back. And I think you told me this. This year in particular, it seems like there's just being more widespread stadium tours. I mean, it's kind of all over the place. 10 years ago, there were no stadium tours at all, or very, very minimal. 5 years ago, we were just starting to see artists do some dates on stadiums. You had One Direction and Zac Brown Band and all this stuff, a lot of country. And now it's kind of like it's the 80s again. There's lots and lots of stadium shows. So we were talking about the trend of older artists leaving the stage and perhaps taking money out of the business. Maybe stadium tours kind of come in and fill that void because there's a lot of money in stadiums, assuming that people fill them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it's about the vibe. The Dead has always done one-off spot stadium dates, and we're seeing that now. Dead & Company just played New York this past weekend. They've got Eugene coming up, which I don't think anybody's played Eugene, Oregon at Autzen besides the Ducks since U2 did it on like Zoo TV. Like, it's been a long time since somebody's cracked that nut. But of course, it used to be a normal stomping ground for the Grateful Dead. So that could be a pretty cool play. But also, they're doing multiples at Folsom Field, and there's a handful of stadium dates for those guys as they're jumping through the amphitheaters this summer. So we're seeing a lot of that this summer. It's definitely changed the vibe, but a more creative way to see different acts in different places. You're not seeing 17 shows in the same shed all summer long.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a rich tradition of stadium shows. Here in Denver, talk about Mile High Stadium. There's that famous incident where Guns N' Roses and Metallica played at Mile High in the early 90s. And there's a lot of versions of this story floating around, was that Axl Rose tried to run off the stage as he had earlier in St. Louis and caused a riot.
Show was August 12th, 1992 at the original Mile High Stadium. And I was there, row 11, dead center.
Really? I was there too. I was not as far up as you were. But do you remember the point where Axl left for a while and all of a sudden the rest of the band kind of had to fend for themselves? And I think Duff sang a song. Do you remember that?
Yeah. So what happened was, it was a 3-band show. Body Count played first, technically, right? They were the opener because it was a co-headline, and we're talking Black Album tour. So Metallica played first, and this was clear that they weren't about the drama. They were going to get in and out of the way, so no matter what Guns did, they were going to be done. So they played the center slot, did a full headline set, and this was after they had already played 3 nights at McNichols that winter. So this was their 4th Denver on that album. Then Guns N' Roses, and by the way, this was a rescheduled show because there was an explosion with the fire pod, and James had gotten hurt and Axl had gotten hurt similarly. So they had postponed this date. And when it finally replayed, Metallica did their set, killed it. Ice-T was amazing. I didn't think I'd like Body Count, like playing metal, but like, holy shit, he blew my mind. Mad respect for that guy. Who knew that he'd go on to be a famous actor? So you got one of the hardcore rappers coming out and like singing with a metal band and pulling it off in front of the best metal crowd in the world. Metallica, Guns N' Roses fans, right? Mile High, big show, waiting for the replay. Finally, an hour and a half, at least between sets of the breakdown and the setup of the Guns N' Roses show. They finally take stage. Been waiting for that forever. First time I had ever seen Guns N' Roses. And they're like 5 songs in. the band is just playing and Axl's gone, and it's not all that weird for him to take off even now during a show, and like he'll change shirts, he'll do some water, he'll take one song off after every 3 or so and come back on. But he was just gone. The band kept playing some blues riffs, and they're like filling, and apparently, if you read Barry Fay's book, and I think, Mike Fruitman has been on the podcast talking about the story too, who worked security that night, Axl got in his limo and headed for the airport. Barry, who paid for the limo and had the limo driver's number, knowing that this was going to incite a riot if he didn't get back on the stage, called the limo driver and told him get the fuck back there. Barry pulls him from the limo, puts Axl back on stage, and then stands on the side of the stage with his arms folded, making it very clear that he wasn't getting off stage. Axl, being a kind of a small guy at the time, and Barry never being small, there was no question he didn't need security to help him. And there, on those big, huge stadium shows back in the day, the stages were more like scaffolding. They weren't these big stages that were erected on regular now, that were customized for this, the big cats. So there's really only one way off unless you were going to stage dive, and those stages were like 20 feet up. So that was the only way off, was past Barry and his handful of security guards standing on the side of the stage, and he was there. So even they had sound problems coming up on a couple songs down the road, Axl threw the mic and started heading for the stage, and Barry walked out on stage to let him know there was no way. And you saw him grab another mic and like, well, we're here for duration no matter how bad the sound is here in Denver. To read Barry Fay's book and to hear that story like from Barry's side is amazing. If you haven't, you should certainly read it. It's a great read.
The thing I remember, as you probably remember too, is just the energy went down after seeing those amazing Body Count and Metallica sets. All of a sudden, Guns N' Roses came out and the crowd was stoked, and I think they did a couple of their hits to start with. And then the next thing you know, it's just like letting the air out of a balloon. Like Axl disappeared, and then they did all these blues songs, and then Axl came back and kind of sang this lackluster set, and everybody left home disappointed in Guns N' Roses, but there were no riots.
Very significantly, there were no riots. I like that.
I actually met with Barry shortly before he died, and we were talking a little bit about this incident, and that's why my memory was a little cloudy of it, because I didn't write it down. It was just an informal conversation. But as I recall, he said something like, it had just happened in St. Louis. It damn well wasn't going to happen in Denver.
That makes sense. And I want to say that the original date was scheduled for August, but it actually played September 19th was the schedule after the explosion. So we get that one correct. So
that sounds right.
Man, I want to thank you so much for taking time and talking to us on Promoter 101. What's your next article coming out in Rolling Stone going to be about?
Don't have anything assigned at the moment on Rolling Stone. I do have something coming up in the New York Times that should run any day, about where I tried to talk to all the women who have ever performed on Warped Tour and wound up talking to about 75 of them. So I'm excited about that one. That one should be pretty interesting. Got some good stories.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking time and talking to us on Promoter 101, Steve.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Breaking news. Everybody's following the Circle Artist thing. What UTA bought, big part of that company. And then we got 3 breakaways. So 33 and West is the new name of the agency. No new guys to the industry by any means. Everybody knows these guys. They're veterans. You've got Dan Rosenbluth, you've got JJ Kassir, and you got Matt Pike, all starting their own new agency, 33 and West. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Steinberg.
Tell us about the new agency. I mean, you guys already have 75 artists signed up right off the bat. You guys are a major indie.
Yeah, we were able to retain almost all of our artists, save for, I think, one. And, that sort of dedication from both sides just is really a testimony to how deep and how dedicated they are to us as we are to them.
Yeah, I mean, sure, what Dan said, but also it's really exciting to be able to now really control our path, create our own culture that we want to give out to the community and also in our office and to our clients.
Okay, so right off the bat, Dance Gavin Dance, Converge, Napalm Death, Insane Clown Posse, The Dead Kennedys, Black Dahlia Murder. I mean, the roster's great right off the bat. You guys have got some serious rock bands involved from day one.
For sure. I mean, it's definitely stacked in that department, but, there's also a lot of cool stuff we have going on outside of the metal rock world, and definitely we'll be dipping our toes, which we already have, into the TV film world. But we know that we all need to start somewhere first, and the TV and film stuff will come as we go, and each and every day will be a win or a little win to us. But we know the music is the forefront of the company, and that's definitely the general main focus as we progress.
Well, I think everybody knows your sideline hobby is being an actor, and you've done a couple films already. Are you going to be the first client on the film side for 33 and West?
That's great. Hopefully not, but, we'll see.
No, we've signed a couple directors and a couple screenwriters. We've got a feature film in pre-production now, and the same with a television series as well. So a couple things moving in that avenue, but one thing at a time right now. And then launching this with music as the driver and building out that vibe and culture in the agency is the primary focus at the moment.
So Matt Pike didn't make the call, but that's no big deal. I'm just curious where he's going to add the 33 and West logo to his body, as he's just a tattooed king. Is there any space left? Maybe he'll go Mike Tyson with it, put it on his face?
I wouldn't be surprised. I think his wife would kill him.
We're all expecting amazing things from you guys to come with this new agency, and it's certainly an exciting time as we're seeing more and more agencies get gobbled up that there's a new boutique that's ready to play the game. Congratulations, guys.
Well, we appreciate that. It's exciting and actively going to be growing tactfully, but growth is important to us, and what we have for now is a great start, but in another year or two, hopefully we'll be having a different conversation with you, about where we're at.
Well, we look forward to working with you guys in the upcoming year and can't wait to see what's next. And agents beware, you guys are growing and probably, I imagine, adding to the team real soon, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's about the person and the people that, we want to bring on board. It's about all this energy and culture and aligning with people that understand where we're at. Taking it into a little different direction and us working at different companies and taking what we like from a lot of those companies and also things we didn't like from those companies. So this is the first time actually we can apply that to our own company, which is exciting to us as guys who've been booking for a while and wanting to mentor people and look at other companies and the way we worked when we worked there and be able to pick and choose what we didn't like and what we liked. So it's important to us.
Thanks so much for taking time and talking to us on Promoter 101, guys. Best of luck with the new agency.
Thanks so much, Dan. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Ryan Steinberg, and you can watch my daddy on Promoter 101.
It's everyone's favorite time of the week, the announcement of Promoter 101's Badass of the Week.
This week we have a special, very exciting announcement for Promoter 101. This week's Badass comes to us from LA's Nederlander Concerts. It's the one and only Mike Goldsmith. He is beloved by all that know him, and he's a great talent buyer, making him this week's Promoter 101 Badass of the Week.
Congrats goes out to our boy Mike G from Nederlander Concerts. Well deserved.
Hey, this is Matt Berenger from the Pabst Theater Group here on Promoter 101.
In our feature interview this week, we're joined by Silverback Artist Management's Jon Phillips.
An extraordinary, legendary manager, killing it right now with Slightly Stoopid. Your roster's just kind of exploding. Let's talk about it, man. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a lot, Steiny. It's great to be here. This is actually the 20th anniversary year for Silverback Music, so we do have a lot going on and excited to bring a lot of good music out there for 2018.
So Silverback, I hear the name and I think like hairy Jewish dude with just a ton of silver hair now that it's just changed color. Is that what that was all about?
Well, we're not quite there yet. Now, the name actually originated in 1998. I happened to be on tour with the Long Beach Dub All-Stars in Europe, and it was 2 years after Bradley Noel from Sublime had passed away, and we went out to Europe for the first time, bringing the LBC sound out there, and Opie Ortiz, who was an artist of Sublime, a lot of their album covers and the famous tattoo on Bradley's back, and also was a frontman singer for Long Beach Dub All-Stars. He just started calling me a Silverback on the bus, and it kind of stuck, and he illustrated some original artwork on these cards, and he gave me my first business card, and that's actually where the name
So you were from. Dubbed with this name.
Dubbed with the name, yeah.
Pun intended.
Exactly.
Long Beach Dub, like Sublime, all those guys, is that where you cut your teeth in the biz?
Yeah, well, originally, a lot of people don't know, but I started as a promoter in college. I moved out to Los Angeles to attend UCLA in 91 and started promoting shows on campus, joined the Cultural Affairs Committee and did the UCLA Jazz and Reggae Festival. And one of my favorite shows, I brought Mike Watt and Firehose to the quad area there in Berlin Walk. And
Mike Watt and the Minutemen?
Yeah, this was the Firehose configuration with Ed, and just a legendary band. And Watt's probably one of the great punk rock legends, relatively unknown, but I think so influential. And that was an honor to book him on one of my first shows. And then I started in college working at Gasoline Alley Music, which was a record label joint venture with MCA Records. and really started working the family business. My Uncle Randy started that label with Arnold Stiefel, and they were Rod Stewart's managers. And, I had the opportunity to go cut my teeth and work for them while I was in college, and came out here to LA, made a conscious decision, like this is where I wanted to be, to kind of get a jump on the music business, and had a great connection to get in.
You can get from Rod Stewart to Slightly Stoopid just through one move through you.
Relatively easy, yeah.
That is amazing.
So yeah, actually some of the first concerts growing up were, backstage with Rod in the 80s. Crazy story for Promoter 101 is, remember in the Bay Area at Oakland Coliseum, I think was maybe the Camouflage Tour 84, something like that. I grew up in the Bay Area, my family, and we had about 20 to 30 guests that we brought out to Rod's show at Oakland Coliseum, and Randy Phillips was the manager and Bill Graham was the promoter. I remember I was young. My dad had gotten out of his seat and was taking care of a lot of the people that were there, probably on comp tickets. And the blue guys, the event staff, told him to sit down. And he was like, we were kids, so he was checking on us. And he said, give me a second or whatever. And the blue jacket said, well, we're going to get our boss if you don't sit down. And he looked over and they pointed over and said, the boss comes up, and it's Bill Graham. And he actually kicked my dad out of Oakland Coliseum.
Holy shit. Did his thugs do it, or did he physically pick your dad up and just like...
He came over with the jackets and pretty much escorted him out of the building. Randy and Bill had kind of a story past of some sort, and I was young, so I just caught the fragments of it. But Randy was an early promoter in the Bay Area, doing shows at Stanford's box office out of college, and Bill Graham was the main promoter there. So I think they definitely had their history.
Obviously, Randy has gone on to some amazing things, and Bill's life was cut short way too early.
Yeah, I mean, both are huge influences on me. I grew up seeing so many BGP shows as a kid, and in high school seeing so many Grateful Dead concerts that were Bill Graham Presents, and I definitely consider that a huge influence professionally and how I view the business and from a marketing sense. And, Grateful Dead was a huge, huge influence, and in that sense, Bill Graham, of course, was as well. And then Randy as an early mentor for me, and seeing him develop in the music business has just been a great roadmap for me.
So as a Dead fan, of all of the creations that came after Jerry's passing, which one of them did you appreciate the most or think was the most authentic?
I'm a purist in a sense, but I'm not as opinionated as some Deadheads. I think Bob Weir's renaissance, for me, it's extremely validating, and I feel like Bob Weir kind of came out of the shadow that he was cast in. Even as Deadheads, a lot of people are critical of Bobby, or you were in a Jerry camp versus Bob camp. I always really respected Bob Weir, but I don't think he got the credit. And
kind of the George Harrison of the band,
and he was just the younger guy in the band, and Jerry is kind of the guy musically in a sense, but there wasn't a Grateful Dead without Bob Weir. Actually, I went to the same high school as Weir, so high school was in Menlo Park, Atherton, Palo Alto.
I would imagine there's quite a few years in between you, though.
Yeah, I started wearing tie-dyes to school in sophomore year, and the Spanish teacher said, Grateful Dead. He's like, Bob Weir was a student here in the 60s, and we had to kick him out. He was a flunky. But yeah, so coming from that area and having that history, and just out of the configurations, I mean, I think the Weir Mayer configuration is really doing it a lot of justice, playing the music at the highest level it's been played. The Fare Thee Well shows, to be there at that event was just an amazing feeling, that props to Shapiro for pulling that together. It was a once in a lifetime type of thing, and an experience to come back and feel that once again. I can't necessarily go back and listen to those tapes. It doesn't do the same justice as when I was there. The way that Dead and Company is doing it now is satisfying to me that we still even have yet another dose, pun unintended, again.
So John Mayer over Trey Astania in that world for you?
For me, I mean, as a singer, and I mean, they didn't give Trey a very long leash as a singer. Yeah, I kind of like the Bob Weir and John Mayer combo a little bit better. But I mean, to see Trey do that with the Dead, was Hornsby and all those guys, it's like something that you dreamed you could see, and Peter Shapiro made it happen.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot of people could have had egos and not made that happen. It seems like everybody put everything aside. And
I mean, yeah, it was an incredible
just brought it.
Really did, once in a lifetime. But I think to really have another dose of the Dead is like, who would have thought? I'm happy for Bob Weir and those guys because they seem like they're having fun, and I know they're kind of swan songs of their career, start really able to have this extra success that they deserve. And
he's just a club owner now, right?
Right? Yeah, we love the Sweetwater. I mean, our bands go through Bobby's place, and we've been able to develop a relationship with Bob Weir and Slightly Stoopid, which definitely is one of the pinnacles of my career, is helping to produce the sessions at TRI Studios with Slightly Stoopid and Weir. He's been such a gracious legend, you know, and sometimes you meet your heroes, and when they defy expectations, it's a great thing, you know.
Did he let you pet this Yosemite Sam mustache?
I didn't try. No, he had to ask. If he wanted a stylist, you know, maybe we could go there. No,
we have taken a turn.
Right. But to go to TRI Studios and work in a facility that was no expense spared, highest tech Myra Sound Constellation system, which is his room's program with all these speakers that you can change the reverbs and sounds in the room remotely. So Bobby comes out and does a tutorial in the center of the room to the band, and he's on an iPad and changing all the settings. And he's a techie. We've seen Bob at SF Tech Music thing, and to actually go in the studio and then have a band that I've worked closely with since 1998, and to see them grow and actually be able to make music at that level with a legend like Bob Weir, playing with them in the same room, definitely a career highlight.
Let's talk about them for a second. Let's jump back to the band.
Slightly Stoopid.
Jeremy Holgerson was their agent for a long time, and I remember doing a lot of club dates with them early on, and they weren't worth more than 100 tickets. They were the fifth band on tours, and it wasn't happening. And suddenly, the world changed for them. Aaron Pincus got involved. Things got bigger. The fans started to click. There was this 311 pepper lifestyle vibe that came together, and they became the Boys of Summer, and it really started to happen. Can you take us through what happened that they were just not sparking any ticket sales to they were selling out Red Rocks? How did that happen? Because that's an amazing climb.
I mean, it's like a lot of things in the business or in the public. It's like overnight success takes 10 years to get to, and with Slightly Stoopid, I mean, most of it is just hard work, grinding it out as road warriors before the digital music revolution. You know, Stoopid still had that early fan base.
It was just kicking down the doors long enough it finally worked. There wasn't a critical thing that changed.
No, there's some, I could point out, you know, I think a few key components that shifted, you know, what they did. First off, they were discovered at an early age by Bradley Knoll from Sublime, and Sublime put their first records out on Skunk Records, independent punk rock, DIY style. And that was before music was really traded or file sharing, or of course where we are now with complete digital streaming. But they had gone around the country several times just in a van, and Sublime unfortunately wasn't around as a big brother to take Slightly Stoopid on tour, or they would have had probably a quicker path to success. And Sublime never got to tour because of Bradley's passing.
Sublime didn't get to tour infinitely, but they did tour.
They toured, but their biggest shows really were the first ever Warped Tour in '95, where they played for...
Right, they were a small theater band at their biggest on the road. Like places like the Fox, they'd be selling out in Boulder.
Yeah, man, that was an early big market for them. They never got to tour under their commercial success.
We'll get emails about that. It's just...
But Slightly Stoopid cut their teeth on their own. I think in 2001, they released a record in '96 on Skunk. They released the self-titled. They released '98, The Longest Barrel Ride, which was a little bit more, you know, still a SoCal reggae and punk. And then in 2001, they were given a national tour by Fishbone and had the record Acoustic Roots, a one-take on the radio performance live of them playing just Miles and Kyle acoustic guitars and singing. It's one of those magical types of, you know, lightning in a bottle recordings. It captured magic of these two guys at the time that they grew up. They're like brothers, and they could really play and sing. And that exposed, I think, Slightly Stoopid's, really Miles and Kyle's natural organic talent with guitar and vocals. And I think that started to bring them a different fan base. It wasn't just Cali Sublime thing. It was like we could start crossing the band a little bit more into the jam band world, if you will, acoustic singer-songwriter type of credibility after that point. So I think 2001 and the record Acoustic Roots was a big shift for them. And then just a lot of years grinding it out. And what we did was Slightly Stoopid. In 2007, we packaged a tour called Summer Haze. And we attempted, after, the band had a foundation, maybe 5 or 7 years of hardcore touring, we packaged them and G-Love, who was like a brother to the band, and Ozo Motley, and did an outdoor amphitheater tour in 2007. That was the first one. 2007 Summer Haze, Slightly Stoopid, G-Love, Ozo Motley.
That's a feel-good summer show if there ever was one.
Yeah, and that was the start of what has become a ritual now, and kind of, I think, a summer rites of passage. Is Slightly Stoopid's been smart, and we've consciously tried to package great events for people that have kind of a subcultural element to them and the community. And I think that's what Slightly Stoopid's been able to establish. I mean, it's a real community of stupid heads. They've always treated their fans with so much respect, and in some regards, it parallels what the Dead did. It was a communal-based type of thing. People felt connected to one another. There's been a lot of branding with great artists as well, which parallels the Dead and Rick Griffin and Mouse and Kelly, and those were Slightly Stoopid. It's definitely try to bring prominent artists along with them in terms of their imaging and packaging of their tours. And I think all of that's kind of lend itself to create something that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And then you cannot deny the talent in the band. I mean, they've grown from a 3-piece to a 4-piece, and then they started bringing horns and percussion in. In 2010, we had Carl Denson join the band on saxophone, and he became almost an 8th member. He went from Slightly Stoopid to the Rolling Stones, so we haven't seen him as much anymore. But Rashawn Ross from Dave Matthews Band has been jamming with Slightly Stoopid all last summer and become a staple in the horn section. And they're a very talented band with a large musical vocabulary. Sets them apart, from a lot of the other groups, and why I think they're success ultimately. Great songs, great music, great people, great vibes, and they've marketed in a very Grateful Dead-like sense.
Summertime and outdoors seems to be the calling for your fans. Your shows certainly do better outside, and they certainly do better in the hot weather and when it's nice out. So does that change the world on you guys being in the studio on the off season, or do you guys go hit other markets that you can't do outdoor stuff in as much?
I mean, it's changed. The Slightly Stoopid's become more like an outdoor amphitheater band. I mean, that's the summer. That's when, the big shows are happening.
You guys have got a big payroll now. That's not 2 guys anymore. It's not 3 guys anymore.
It's a big footprint for sure. There's substantial cost to be out on the road. So, and
plus those managers take a cut.
Yeah, we have a unique situation with Slightly Stoopid. It's a partnership that dates back to 1998. Symbiotic, we're all kind of on the same thing. I don't think it's a traditional management client scenario.
We can talk about Stoopid forever because we could do a case study on them, but you're not a one-trick pony. You have a long roster of many different acts.
We do have a lot of taste and a large variety of music that we love just as music fans. And music's always been to me like almost, it's cultural and it's regional in a sense. And being that we come from California, we have become known for pioneering the Cali roots movement or reggae rock or whatever. I don't really like the titles, but you have to fit something in the category. We have a real affinity for hip hop and funk and reggae and just about anything that's good. But we've definitely made a conscious effort to spend some time in New Orleans and try to develop a footprint there. And for me, New Orleans music is such a huge component of the fabric of American culture, and it's somewhat and sometimes under-recognized when you think about the footprint of New Orleans music compared to a city like Nashville. It's a very small commodity next to
What do you got against Nashville? What the fuck, man?
I love Nashville. It's a great, great town. But the country music business is just so much bigger is what I'm saying. It's such a more centralized music business.
So you're saying Nashville's gotten its due and maybe New Orleans hasn't yet?
I think New Orleans will always be so unique, a little under the radar, and the music isn't as accessible as country music necessarily.
Okay, so no disrespect to Nashville.
Oh, hell no, man. Love Nashville very much, and love a lot of the music out of there. Jack White's there, how can you argue with that? He's one of my favorites. Just trying to give back and try to push the envelope for New Orleans is something that's been a passion thing for me and for Silverback. We started working with Ivan Neville in 2011. And, Ivan's representative because he's in the cross generation of the family thing in New Orleans. He's a Neville, but he straddles both sides of the fence. He's there as a child, raised amongst the Neville brothers and eventually playing in the Neville brothers and with a lot of other great artists. And when you look at the lineage of piano players from New Orleans, starting with Professor Longhair and Fats Domino and James Booker and Alan Toussaint, Dr. John, Art Neville, Ivan, he's the next in line to inherit that throne in terms of the keyboard spot in the history of, that city. That's iconic to me. And, he's such a talented artist, and I think he's got a lot left in the tank to bring. Ivan, and then George Porter, the original bass player of the Meters, is a newer client for Silverback, and the Meters are the foundation of funk music. They're the first funk band, and they're probably the most sampled band in hip-hop, which a lot of people don't know, and that's New Orleans music. And for me, it's just been important to try to expose that and try to actually bring that sound to a generation of people that we have a voice with, which is maybe not exposed to that. So that's been definitely a conscious effort on our parts.
Man, you forgot the first rule of drug dealing. Don't get high on your own supply, man. You are fucking drinking your own Kool-Aid. You love your bands, man. Not something you see every day in the industry anymore. A lot of people, it's a business, it's a product, it's content, but you clearly are a fan of what you represent.
Yeah, I think that's been crucial for Silverback in general, is that we don't really invest our times and our lives into anything we don't love. Doing this becomes such a personal thing, and if I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. Sometimes that's not always the quickest path to success, but this being our 20th year, you go through peaks and valleys in the music business and lightning strikes sometimes. I cut my teeth at 23 on Sublime, and if Bradley Nowell had stayed alive, the music world and my life would have been a lot different as well, but I have to give him ultimately the most credit, because his music, the fact that I was able to get involved early with them, and it's opened the door for so much. It's enabled this path to where we're headed.
So being 23 years old and dealing with what was a shit show, and anyone that had ever promoted that band or worked with them in any way knew that it was a party on the road like Animal House. Those guys were out of control. It's like, how do you keep that on the road and working? Because it was a dysfunctional family. They were kids.
Yeah. That's the bottom line. When I go back and look at it, we were all kids. It was chaos. I think at a certain point, it was fun for a lot of other people. I think for somebody like Bradley Nowell, his addiction started taking hold to where in a lot of cases you probably weren't having as much fun as was perceived. It becomes a maintenance scenario. That was always a concern for me, is like, man, if this does take a step up to the next level, how do you control that kind of chaos?
Because it's a Belushi-esque story.
Yeah, I didn't have the experience at the time in terms of dealing with an addict. Addiction is one of those things that now I have had multiple experiences dealing with artists that have these kinds of issues. And not that I have regrets that I would have done anything differently. When I worked at Gasoline Alley as the band's A&R and manager, Gasoline Alley actually, they came out of pocket for a drug rehabilitation program for Bradley, because he got busted. There was an OD from somebody close to where he was, and he was blamed for that and went to jail. And we wanted the band to be able to tour internationally, and the label was invested enough to where they paid for drug rehab. And I would fly. I remember flying to Northern California to take him to the program and really try to get him help. And one of those things that, just as kids, it was just out of control and couldn't stop, and when he did, which was like when everyone least expected it was going to happen, he OD'd, maybe because his tolerance was down, but he had been clean that month, and the band was really reaching heights as a live band. They were playing very, very...
And radio had taken to them. They were really exploding.
Yeah, at that point, Date Rape was the only hit at radio, and a few other regionals. What I Got had not been released. Bradley passed away in May of 1996, and the big record that spawned all the hits, the self-titled record, that came out in August of 1996. So they never got to tour under that radio success, but previous albums had finally hit, like that 10 years later. Date Rape had been released in 91 or 92, and it hit K-Rock Radio in 95, and they went on the first Warped Tour and opened up that next generation of traveling roadshow and whatnot, I guess, post-Lollapalooza. But rest in peace, Brad Nowell. Like I said, it's kind of the single most pivotal thing in my life, and he was just an amazing talent and underrated artist, extremely intellectual mind and capacity, thought processes, and it's unfortunate that he didn't stick around.
I want to go ahead and end there because I don't think there's a better place to end than the tribute to Bradley that you just did. It's a great moment. Thank you so much, Jon, for taking the time and being with us on Promoter 101.
Right on, Steiny. It's an honor. Thanks a lot.
Man, Jon has a vibe that just screams rock and roll. Dig him so much.
Hey there, Doug Edley from UTA. Love listening to Promoter 101 every week. Keep it up.
Tweets of the week.
I don't think there's any way around it anymore. We can't avoid it. It's a time for some tweets of the week. Dan, let's break down what you're talking about. Let's start here. When an agent sends a contract after a show has been confirmed for months and then sends a reminder the same day to turn them around as if you're sitting on them for more than 3 hours.
Luke, I'll give you one guess on who the agency was on this one. Little bit of love for Des in our office here who got those turned around the same day for the agency that wasn't quite doing their job.
Not going to say who that was.
Yeah, but I bet you know.
Maybe. How about this one? When you try to keep the peace between everyone and you just come off like a schmuck.
No good deed goes unpunished, huh, Luke?
Never does. And how about this one? When you're copied on an endless email chain that has nothing at all to do with you.
We've all been there, right? Office 101, right? Fuck it.
BCC. Move people to BCC. Save the inbox. Hashtag save the inbox. We need a campaign to save the inbox.
Let's get John Oliver on board. That'll make it work.
It should.
Let's get her done, Luke. Let's get her done.
Get her done. And that'll do it for Promoter 101 Tweets of the Week. You can follow Dan on Twitter. He is @TheJew.
Tim Borer from UTA on Promoter 101.
It's time for one of our favorite segments, 3 questions. This is when a listener comes on and asks us some questions. The only catch is we haven't heard him first.
This week we got 3 questions from the Broadberry's Lucas Fritz.
What's up, man?
Hey, not too much. How's it going, Dan?
Hey, welcome to the podcast. We're looking forward to playing 3 questions with you. What do you got for us?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. All right. So first, when you're growing outside of a market you consider home and most comfortable with, what do you look for first? Are you looking for a room, the town, local scene, or are you just really looking for like a slam dunk show to have your first one?
For me, it's never been about the market. It's always been about the artist, and it hasn't been since I was maybe 19 years old. So for me, it's about how the artist is going to perform based on the demographic of the market and then the right venue for them to play.
Sure.
You always want to put the act in the best venue in the market for them. And it's always usually comes down to routing for me. So in some cases, there's a relationship in one market, but on the other 4 markets that week, it's a jump ball. And more often than not, you know, they're going to want to play for a friend opposed to somebody they've never met in the market before, so long as you understand that market. So for us, it's more about the artist's needs.
All right, number 2. So when you're booking a giant show that's going to do 3, 4, 5,000 tickets, I mean, you already know those artists, you know their history, support bands don't even fucking matter. What do you think the best resource is when you're doing research on smaller artists for 2 to 500 to 700 cap shows? And then kind of like a follow-up to that, part 2 is, you know, how would you apply numbers, if at all, from a market across the country for a smaller band as you're looking to grow them?
All right, well, let's break this apart a little bit because this is more than 2 questions within itself, actually. First of all, I will argue that support does matter when you're talking about trying to sell 3 to 4 to 5,000 tickets, or even if you're trying to sell 1,000 tickets, the package always matters. Unless it's an act nobody's ever heard of and it's just a throwaway. Who else is on that bill really helps define what that ticket price should be. And when you're talking about 1 + 1 + 1 = 3, if you've got a Slayer, the other 2 bands on that bill really depend on whether you're playing a 1,500 seat room or whether you're playing an arena. So that support thing is a way bigger deal than a lot of people make it. Second of all, as far as how do you judge what the act is going to do? You definitely are paying attention to the numbers. You're networking. You're talking to media. Your attention to their socials and seeing how active it is, and finding out what the buzz is currently at the moment on that act. So if it's an historical act like Slayer, you know there's going to be a fan base there regardless. Same thing with like a Social Distortion. They're selling tickets just based on the fact that people love their back catalog. When you're talking about something a little bit newer that's on the rise, say Ghost, who went on sale for their second leg nationally just this week, we're basing it on that first leg of sales. So the indicators of how that first run went was certainly based on what venues we put them on the second leg and how strong that was going to be, because everything was based to set up to win for those guys. And management, the agent, and the promoters and the venues all on the same page. What do we need to do to make sure we knock these down? So we were not just looking at venues we could sell, but venues that we could sell out handily. And for that, we were really paying attention on what's it going to do in Middle America? Because you know New York and LA, never going to be a problem. What's it going to be in Mobile? What's it going to be in Midland, Odessa? What's it going to be in Albuquerque? And that takes a little bit more fine-tuning and research. What's a good rock market? What's a terrible rock market? Where are people going to freak out to the theme of the band in the best possible way? Those are things you take a lot of time fine-tuning, especially when you only have so many dates on a tour. Like, can we play this market or can we play that market? And then you fill in the middle with, okay, well, we got to get from Denver to Chicago. So in the middle of the country, there's only so many options and there's only so many days. Where does that wind up falling?
All right, so 3. I joke with my partner, like, all right, we already know how we need to grow. We just got to start adding zeros to all our numbers on our offer sheets. So as a promoter and venue owner for small rooms here in Richmond, Virginia, what sort of things do you think I should prepare for or focus on or even work towards as I'm growing into theaters and ballrooms 3, 4, 5 times the size of the rooms that I've grown accustomed to?
I would argue that it's not just about adding zeros. I would argue that it's about the rudiments of the business and understanding your trade. In the Malcolm Gladwell sense of the word, 10,000 hours. You learn by doing. It's a volume business, and you see the mistakes and the problems that happen over and over again, and they get hammered out and they get fixed as you do the volume. You learn to anticipate what's going to happen because you've seen it over and over again. So it's not just about doing bigger. It's about doing better and learning and doing more. So volume is always going to help you have a more sharply tuned skill and a better production, and the fans are going to have a better experience, the band's going to have a better day, and you're going to have a better, more smoothly run show based on the volume of shows you've done and how many times you've done it. It's just a long-term getting used to that process. And as you get great in the clubs, you'll do more theater shows because your bands will build into that, and you'll get better at those. And then the arena shows will come. You'll be amazed at how undifficult arena shows are once you've taken a stab at them. Because unlike the club shows where you kind of have to do everything yourself, the arena shows, there's very few things you can touch. Almost every arena in the country has a union staff, so you're not unloading semis. You're certainly not rigging anything. You have to have certification for that. Catering is going to be handled by the in-house caterers in most cases. Settlement's going to be kind of a house nut for the entire house, usually on an arena, predetermined. Settlement's going to be fairly well easy because the arena is basically going to hand you a pack with the entire settlement done. So it's going to be pretty clean and easy for you. The only thing you're really going to have to do is market. And a lot of the arenas have amazing marketing teams too that are going to help you walk down the street on that. So it's a whole lot easier to produce an arena show these days than it is to produce a club show. It's just a lot more expensive. Did that answer your question?
I think so. We are doing a lot of volume in the smaller rooms, and it's like, how do we kind of make that leap to get the bigger acts and push them into the bigger rooms? As the industry is all about relationships, and having that relationship with the agent is like, no, you trust me that I can do these 1,800, 3,000 seat rooms. So, you're right, it is volume and just kind of taking the leap.
It's about being the guy that's always there for the agent that never says no. It's about being his go-to. Because everybody's got a favorite. And if you can be 5 to 20 agents' favorite guy in your territory, you're going to get the shot on a lot of stuff. And I imagine you've built a bunch of those relationships at the point that you're already at, I assume.
Yes.
Okay, so with that in mind, the question is talking to those guys, hey, where could we do more business together? I know how to sell social distortion really well. So when I talk to Andy Summers, I say to him, what's open? What other markets can you tip my way? And he's like, oh, hey, Social D is done, but maybe there's a Pennywise market that I'm having trouble filling and a market that if you want to take a shot at, you can have. It's like, oh, cool. Maybe I'll do that. Pennywise never has a problem getting dates, but hypothetically, if Albuquerque was open, maybe I'd get a shot at submitting for the Sunshine or something. But that's that next level of, hey, you already love me. You already know I do a good job. Where else can we be doing more together? And building off of that. Like in my early days, I got to pick up a handful of extra Jason Mraz dates because Bill Silva was able to tip the ball to me on some open markets that nobody else was raising their hand for. And that grew to arenas in a bunch of those markets. Just being there with my hand up saying, what else can I have? I love this. Let's do more together.
One problem that I run into is there is a larger club in town that's run by one of the big companies. And so, I have lost some shows or some bands and lost some history to them whenever they get bigger. And that's a tough pill to swallow whenever somebody's out there buying a whole tour or they got a big company behind them. That's one thing that I struggle with. Okay, I'm building the band from the 200 tickets to the 550 tickets. And then when we go to make the jump, I end up losing it. And so that's definitely a tough thing. And I'm trying to work towards not having that happen by getting into these bigger ballrooms and theaters that just have other options for them.
It's the National that's there that you're competing with, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's AEG. You're talking about Bill.
Yeah.
We're talking about Bill Reed for those that don't know Bill in the Richmond area, who's a legendary promoter. Do you guys have a pretty social relationship? Are you guys friendly?
Yeah, they do the Norva and the National, and I love the guys that work at the National. I'm going there for American Aquarium, which I think is a pretty good example of, a band I booked in the Camel, which is a smaller venue, 250 up to the 550, and now they're outgrowing me. And you lose the history when they want to go to the bigger room that's run by the bigger company. So we have an okay relationship, I'd say, but they do their shows and I do my shows, and that's just kind of how it works out.
Well, he's not an unreasonable guy, Bill Reed. Have you guys had the conversation about the acts you're developing, being able to develop into their room and working with them together in some kind of big brother relationship?
I haven't, actually. I definitely thought of it, but kind of wondering the implications of what that would mean and how that would work and all those sorts of things. So, that isn't something we've really explored that much.
Well, they have the capacities that your room's built into, right? So it's a natural runway for them. It's a natural runway for you. And until you've had that conversation with him where he said no, if you haven't brought up the question, you haven't given yourself the opportunity to have that chance. And I'm telling you, he's a reasonable guy and he's a good guy. He was an independent for a long time and he knows what that's about. I think if you approached him with that, there's a conversation to be had. But until you actually ask the question, I think that you got to unturn that rock, man, and see what's there. Because I'll tell you, when I was a young promoter in Denver, I had the exclusive on a place called the Snake Pit, which was 325 capacity with a shoehorn just pushing people in because it was maybe 225 and realistic. But hey, it was a long time ago. Club's not around anymore. But yeah, you know how that is, those punk rock rooms where you just keep selling.
Oh, yeah.
So what became Live Nation, House of Blues at the time, Jason Miller was in the Denver office, who now runs New York Live Nation, was the big brother promoter to me in the market. And he was friendly to me. And what he would say to me was, hey, I got to develop these bands in the market. They're not ready to play the 1,000-seater that I have the exclusive on. How about we do them together? If you lose money, I'll eat the loss. You do the work. If it makes money, we'll split it. And then we'll share the history. And, some of those bands, System of a Down, Incubus, Face to Face, I wasn't going to get the calls on some of those acts either. So they were feeding me some stuff on the lower level and they were help keeping my break evens down and protecting me. And for them, my overhead was so much lower than theirs. It was just cheaper for me to develop acts. So we had this great relationship where we weren't competing. We weren't stealing acts. And then I was doing shows in their exclusive venues too. They were letting me in, and Face to Face grew into those rooms. And so did Dashboard Confessional. And me and Jason had a great run with doing a bunch of shows like that. And it was a great friendship. And those guys taught me how to do a lot of things. Like, you have to insure your shows, things like that I maybe didn't know at 18 years old.
Sure.
It can be done. But I think if you're truly looking to grow your business, learning from the guys that have been doing it in your market forever, promoting from them and looking to them as a resource and being friends with them, a whole lot easier than being their competitor, especially if they're willing.
I guess, like you said, until you have the conversation, you never know what they're going to say. It would be very killer if I could start building bands from 200 tickets to 500 tickets to 1,500 tickets and then share it with Bill and Rick over at the National. That'd be dope.
I know those guys to be good partners. I've had the experience of doing a bunch of shows with them in the past and find them to be really reasonable people. I'd be happy to broker that phone call for you if you want and see if there's interest there of having that discussion, if that's something you'd like.
Yeah, I'd love to get in touch with them and even just have a phone call or, just getting together. I mean, more is more, and the more collaboration I find, the better everybody is.
I appreciate the time. I think this was a little bit more of a therapy session than 3 questions, but I'm glad you took the time to talk to us.
Yeah, Dan, thanks for taking time. Thanks for reaching out. And I really enjoy the podcast, man. Keep it up.
Dan, you really seem to get deep on the answers to these 3 questions.
I did. It's hard when you're coming up and all the big promoters in your market to ask for help. You feel vulnerable. But I've known Bill Reed at AEG for a long time. He's a friend, and I knew he'd be open to the conversation. I gave him a call, did a little matchmaking, and I'm hoping that these two can find a way to work with each other, much the same way that Jason Miller helped me many, many moons ago. Good luck to both of you guys. I think there's something really there, and Lucas has definitely got a big career in front of him.
If you want to be on 3 questions, shoot us a note. Hit us at steiny@promoter101.net with your pitch. We'd love to have you on.
Hi, this is Heath Miller.
Becca Leifer.
Ed Mike Cohn. Derek Dimmenstein. Jason Kupperman.
Jason Miller.
John Schur.
Marcia Vlasic.
Mike Fruitman. Ricardo Bacco.
Peter Schwartz.
Nick Storch.
I'm on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
I'm on Promoter 101.
In our next interview, we're joined by Live Nation Spain's Pino Sagliocco, here to talk about the state of affairs in Spain.
We're at ILMC and we're with a legend. Pino, thank you so much for taking time and joining us.
Pleasure, my friend.
You have a grasp on the world market that is unheard of in the States. When it comes to your market, you are the guy.
Well, I would say I feel very blessed on this business. I've been in this business, I say, for 4 years almost now this year. And to be able to stay where I am today and I've lived what I have lived is a great honor, especially to have been able to know it, to represent it, to work with so many artists in my territory and as well to have done so many other projects internationally. But definitely, I'm very blessed and very happy to have met a lot of friends. There still remain a lot of friends. And I believe there is this business still about people, and I'd be lucky to have a lot of good friends still in this business.
Certainly a relationship business. 40 years, you've seen the business go from being independence everywhere to the consolidation and the roll-ups and the world tours. How has that changed business for you when it was buying date by date versus tour systems doing global deals?
Well, I think that was more emotional. It was really, it's when we were young. I think it's the business in the end of the 70s and the beginning of the 80s was amazing. It was incredible because at that time it was really about people. It was really about relationship and was really about the passion, how to promote, how to create, how to get involved. We feel part of the family. We know who the promoter was. We were the promoter. We know who the agent was, who the manager was, who the record company was. We are all one family. We're all together. And the one thing is, I must say, is whatever today we are on this fast world in terms of a globalization, on those time, we didn't have any portable phone. We didn't have any email. We didn't have any way of communication. So it was just a telex and a fixed phone. And I guarantee you we did more things than we ever done before today because it was more like on trust. They know you're working with you in Spain. They know they leave it to you and you were really very much in charge. You were really acting about everything, protecting the artist, work with the artist and help to grow the career with the artist. It was definitely an amazing time. And also the relationship on those time, not only with the managers and the agent, the relationship with the artist was really close relationship. It's no one artist I worked with till to the middle of the 90s, which we don't have friend relationship. I had the privilege to go on the road with Frank Sinatra and to spend the nights with him, stays together with the Ray Charles, with James Brown, with the Stones, with Freddie Mercury. We used to come on holiday in Ibiza, work together. George Michael used to come to my house and we hung out in Ibiza. Prince and Michael Jackson. It was really amazing. Metallica, Depeche Mode, everybody we worked in the past. It was really, we were one big family. It was really an exciting time.
That family is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that you just recited. That's amazing.
Well, it's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because basically I had the privilege to work all that. I remember in the 80s, I wasn't only blessed to work with them. I think we had the opportunity to really do something. I never forget when on the end of the 80s, I made a television show. I don't know if you remember Ibiza 92 from the Crew Club in Ibiza. It was a television show I wanted to do in that time. And I was starting to say I want to build the television events worldwide. And I made a big television in Ibiza, which was in 1986. In the end of the 86, I was trying to do something really unique from Ibiza worldwide for music. I was building up an idea how we should do a program, like a TV program worldwide, and especially from Spain, and not just to be a promoter, to do something from your own territory and to basically put it on a map worldwide. I remember I had an idea and I was working on this idea for a long time. This is probably one of the most exciting time which I ever had in my life, and also adrenalinic time, which I was working on an idea how to do big television event worldwide. I really wanted to make it big time.
Global.
I was going on the idea. And then in 1986, I had Queen on tour with Kind of Magic in Spain. And in that tour, what just happened was he was the 1st of August in Barcelona, 3rd of August in Madrid, 5th of August in Marbella. But in August, in those times, Madrid was dead. We didn't have like today, how to call before Ticketmaster or how many tickets you sell, how much more or less you figure how many you're going to sell. You don't know about anything. That was a purely box office.
Everything was walk up.
A walk up in the day.
Oh, how terrifying.
Terrifying because especially in August, in Madrid, in those times, you don't even see a cat on the street. It was like totally hot, empty, nobody.
Like the tumbleweeds rolling across the street.
Absolutely. Like we were in Barcelona. Because Barcelona, we were on the coastline. I was a little bit less worried because we know you will have the last minute walk up from a lot of tourists coming out from the Costa Brava. So we went well. And I remember that night, that is when the magic comes and a big thing changes my life that night. We went to a discotheque after the show with Freddie, with Rogers. And I was a little bit concerned I was going to turn up Madrid. So finally that night we're talking and I said to Roger, I need to get an interview with you. If you give me an interview with Freddie and you guys, tomorrow I get a program called Informe Semanal. It's like the equivalent of 60 minutes on those time in America. I said, if we get this program, that would be amazing because that would be the most seen program on Saturday night, Sunday, 3rd, we're going to pack to Madrid. But I need to do that.
We got to tape it today so we get it up tomorrow and we can fill the room.
Exactly. Yeah. No, we did it. And that would be a special, right? An Informe Semanal, like 60 minutes dedicated on Queen. But Freddie on those time I never do. But luckily that night, by the magic of the night, the show and everything, I said, you know what? I'll give you the interview. Let's make it happen. So we did happen. I called the guy from the Informe Semanal. We had him on. He built it up in Madrid. We went to the Palace Hotel. hotel. We had the interview, turned us out to put it all together. We sit in a room and we did an amazing interview. The next day we had the 60 minute. It was one of the most amazing, really first time ever done an highlights on a band, like on that magnitude in a program of such prestige. And on Sunday on the show, I mean, it's like Gremlins. You go on the city, you see people coming from everywhere. So like we did a massive sold out.
The power of TV.
Massive sold out. It is one of the best show ever. I remember on Radio Vallecano, which was amazing. So that happens. I still, in 86, which I had a lot of tour in 1986, was Rod Stewart, was Shade, Spandau Ballet, Scorpions, a lot of band on that time. But I was going on with my idea of want to do this television show. And I was thinking what I can do with a television show. So what happened in October, 6th October, I was in my house. And I was speaking to an artist friend of mine. And actually I said, look, I never saw the special of really on television of Freddie interview, which was done in May. We're speaking now in August. We're speaking now the 6th of October. So I actually saw the video that night. So actually I saw the video just to watch with him, the video of the interview. And in the interview, he said, he was asked, who is the artist you really dream to work with? And he said, Montserrat Caballé, Fisby, my guy, every morning wakes me up on that. And that was an amazing when you have the boom. And I thought, sadly, as soon as the video went off, the television jumped on. And when the television jumped on, I saw Montserrat Caballé, Maragall, the mayor of Barcelona, Samaranch, the president of the Olympic Committee, and the vice president of Spain, jumping in Lausanne that Barcelona was awarded the Olympic Games in 1992.
Great timing.
Just timing. And then I said, okay, Ibiza 92. So I called the program in Ibiza 92. So I had the idea to put Freddie Mercury and Montserrat Caballé together, great. Imagine those two, the rock world, the opera world, opening the show. That would be an amazing thing it's ever done before, dreaming about it. Now we can write a book about that because that was a hell of a lot of journey to get to that done. In the end, we actually achieved it. We met together. They get it together. And in 1987, 29th of May, in a club in Ibiza, was the first time ever in history the rock and the opera world enjoying together with the song Barcelona, sung by Freddie Mercury and Montserrat Caballé. And the opening act for that show, for the television broadcast, which we did in 33 countries, right? BBC One, ZDF, TF1, Italy, Australia, South America. North America was Showtime, which now I'm going to tell you, we get to Showtime. That was really an incredible thing.
So you really broke the world with this.
So when we did that, we did the television there. The opening act was Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet, Poison, Nona Hendrix, Marillion, Chris Rea, and a lot of other big bands.
It's an amazing lineup.
That was one of the most, I would say, a before and after in my career in terms to build up something.
That was the line in your career, the before and the after?
Yeah, I think it was
the rock fusion connection. Because if that had gone badly, that probably would have had a much different effect on your career financially.
Yeah, no, but not only that. I think that was at the beginning of really, when I start, make it happen with passion. Dreams only comes through if you're passionate about it. Dreams only happens if your passion draws and inspire and get people really want to be part of what you try to create or what you try to do. And to do that, you have to come from the heart and you have to come from really the passion in what you do. And actually, after that, finally enough, one of the Showtime brought to me on that show an American producer, line producer, because everything you do when you produce with America, even though you do produce the show here, they always bring their online producer for their program. And that one was Ken Ehrlich.
Oh, wow.
The one who came from America as a line producer for Showtime. I think he was working on that time, which since then we still remain a very good friend. And I think Ken Ehrlich is amazing.
Yeah, some of the biggest programs in the world are under Ken Ehrlich.
And then from there is when I really make a big turnover in the music business because I not only was creating or producing the great concerts, I tried to make Spain really to become a sort of the highlights in the world to create the television events. I remember I took a CD, Coruña, in the north part of Spain, doing Whitney Houston live from Coruña for the world. The Rolling Stones live Barcelona, the Madonna live for Barcelona for the world, Tina Turner, Franz Zappa from Barcelona, Leonard Cohen from San Sebastian, Paul Simon from San Sebastian, no stop. I mean, this was really, as I say, in those times, everything was possible. Nothing was impossible because it was about people, it was about the passion, it was about music, it was to be part of the family.
Well, it certainly has a cool vibe to it, too. Live from Barcelona. It just sounds awesome.
It was awesome. It was not only live from San Sebastian. It was live from Coruña, live from everywhere. Spain was on fire.
So under Spain as your market, how many different playable markets can a tour hit?
When we first started, you can only play Barcelona, Madrid. Going outside Barcelona, Madrid was an adventure. Then you open up and now you can go every single town in Spain. You can do shows. And there is shows, festivals, events, concerts. It means the live music today is nothing compared to those times. Remember, those times, any events could come to the country was a national event because there was nothing coming in. So to have one band, 2, 3, 10, 20 bands a year was like an amazing, massive tour.
But now you've had a paradigm shift, so you probably have to worry about the traffic that's playing and on sale dates and everything else that's competing.
That's exactly what it is. Like being on air, it's in traffic control. I'm going on sale today. No, which is another plane coming from there. No, another one coming from there. Now this other one is going on sale. Today it's changed. The world changed, but the live work is in a better shape than ever been before. People really find it the way to understand, even though many years ago people believes to open up the virtual and the cybernetic will stop the live. That will never happen. People love to go live. They love to get together. They love to meet, to share, to entertain, and to really live a live experience. I think a live experience is in the best place than ever been before.
Now, the economy in your market's very strong for shows and has been for quite a while.
Yes. Well, I think it's always, it's every market. I think it's not just Spain. I think Europe altogether and the world altogether, the music the business grow everywhere. Spain has been always a very strong market. And actually, sometimes I get even myself surprised for what so many shows allowed in, so many, basically it's like a cannibalized, like it's so many, one show, another show, another show, another show, and still most of them works. They're really amazing.
How many shows a year do you believe you're producing?
Altogether, 200, something like that. It depends on with the nationals, with the events, with Cirque du Soleil and all the other stuff together. We do a lot of shows.
That's busy. That's 5 shows a week on average.
But as I say, yeah, it's more like, I think we are just today in today world, I mean, like very difficult now. Now it's the global. Everyone comes in. You have every small town. You have a festival, another festival, another festival, another festival. Eventually, the market, as always do, reset themselves up. What is good, sustain. What is not good will go. What is strong will remain. What is not strong will disappear. And that is the natural clean switch in the market. But at the moment, the market is strong and bigger than ever been before.
The live market, certainly internationally, worldwide, is stronger than it's ever been. If you can't make money as a concert promoter right now, you should find another job because it's never been as good as it is right now, and hopefully it lasts.
I don't know if it will last on these kind of things, but it's always we always add things into it. I think there is always the live music will never go down. Because maybe there will be some artists, as I say, will suffer, another one will sustain, will remain, but always will be someone else comes in because it's very emotional. Music is an emotion. Music is communication. The emotion the music brings to people to get together, to really share something. We've never seen anything like that today. It's today even as like the only thing is sometimes probably today is not as it used to be before. Like to do a career, to build up an artist is more difficult than ever been before. Because in terms of long terms, because a lot of artists, if you think today, which sometimes I think about it, I was a little bit sad this past few years because when you think, I had such a great relationship with Michael, we were good friends.
Michael
Jackson, or George Michael, or Prince, or Leonard Cohen, or David Bowie, Martin Frey from Eagles, Franz Zappa. And you see all those people disappear and you think who are replacing them today? It's sad because you really see the creativity and the magnitude of artists from the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s. Still today, the biggest band ever. Still today, the reference of music big time. Ray Charles is gone. Chuck Berry, James Brown. Who is the Chuck Berry of today? Who is the James Brown of today? Who is the Michael Jackson of today? Maybe you get one or two comes up, but in terms of it's more based on hit song now, more in terms of going through most of the things. There is a lot of bands, but stadium act today is hardly every day see more and more stadium act comes in to build through that the magnitude of artists we were before. And that's one of the only problem, the sad things I want to get inside it to see part of the history disappearing, and which you've been part of it, and they're looking for this new Prince, the new Michael Jackson, the new George Michael, the other one to sustain is like going to be very hard to get that kind of artist power
in the draw.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this in America for some time, that there aren't any more stadium acts. And in the last 5 years, we've seen more stadium business than we've ever seen before, because there are a couple of acts from the 90s that have matured into stadium level acts, where U2 was probably the only new stadium act that came out of the 80s and 90s that was able to sustain Rolling Stones kind of numbers. But now you're seeing Pearl Jam. Unfortunately, he's gone, but Tom Petty was doing stadiums in the last round in the States. And we're seeing more and more artists build into that. Here in the UK, ELO was doing stadiums last year. Guns N' Roses was doing stadiums. But that stuff took 20 years of being arena level success artists to move into stadiums. Are you seeing some of that success as well in Spain, where some of those acts that have been arena acts for a while finally had enough hits and been around long enough that they've finally moved up?
I would say it's strangely enough, it's not so much like that, because when I did the Guns N' Roses in 1993 on their top time in the stadium, it didn't work.
There's Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, right?
Yeah, it didn't work as it worked today. I mean, we didn't sell out. Today we sell out.
So it's bigger now than it was then. So they have developed into that.
Because the new crowd, as I said, the music has reached more audience than ever before. I mean, there is a lot of a new generation which they hear those songs, and when you come, it's more attached to the legend. That's what I say. When you think about Pearl Jam, we sold Pearl Jam in 1 hour. Before, Pearl Jam was an arena act, and now it's a stadium act. Or the same as Guns N' Roses is a stadium act, but sustained. I mean, it's not just one show.
Right, but Pearl Jam wasn't necessarily a stadium act before, but they've developed into that over time. Their songs have become anthems.
That's what it happened. So that's what happened to Guns N' Roses. I mean, those songs, I suggest them on 1993, they were suggested to Guns N' Roses fans. Today, there's not just Guns N' Roses fans, people who love music, who've been living with their music, you've been hearing their songs, and suddenly you have to go. It's an experience you cannot miss. So today, I think the attached to the music is more the experiential things of the shows as get stronger than ever been before. People go show, they want to live the experience. So when you say, oh, you have to go to see this, you don't know Guns N' Roses, oh, you have to go, you have to see it. So it's more like a passionate sort of a new generation in which they really love to discover and to go to find, to be part of the history of, or to be part of, to say they've been here by their father or the oldest brothers or the
generations upon generations.
And then they say, wow, now the chance, I'm going. And actually, we did the show, and 2 years ago, which Joe works with me on is on marketing and promotion, which we came up with an idea with Paul McCartney, which he comes up with an idea, said, Granddad, it
was Granddaddy take me to the show.
No, cool.
So
what a great promotion!
It was a picture of a young kid, which actually was his son, and all the men together to say, "Let's go, bring me to see bring me to the show. Let me go to see Paul McCartney." So it was really connecting the generation, like the both generation, to think. And actually,
what a great idea! Because Grandpa has a disposable income now too, and he can afford to take the little one to the concert at a $95 ticket.
There you go.
What a great idea!
And we have the same idea for Pink Floyd and for Roger Waters in a way. You know,
so it's like
they've become classics.
It's very important when you get it to those classic acts which they come on town. It's really an experience. I mean, I brought my son with me, the youngest one, and he enjoyed it very much. I mean, it was wow, we never heard it. Then now it becomes like sort of a year, those songs. It's the time now, which I do believe there is a more. First of all, to go to concerts is not like it used to be before, like go to concert where you have to be sort of freaky sometime or really fans of the other one.
Yeah.
Rock and roll never was on that.
But now you just have to be a fan of music to go to a festival.
Exactly. Today, I mean, rock and roll has got a strong reputation never been before in terms of also as respect as the music industry. I mean, before to be a rock and roll promoter, those crazy lunatics, the other ones. Today, be a rock and roll promoter is sort of a respected job in terms of, and social has a lot of sex appeal.
Can we go back a second to the Grandfather and Me promotion? When you walked through the audience of Paul McCartney, did you see a lot of grandfathers with their young boys with them or young granddaughters with them when you walked through the audience? Did it work?
Big time.
Yeah.
Because I went to that show last couple times through the States, and it was very much, I was on the young age of the audience, and more people of my father's age filled the audience, and not even couples so much. Guys went with other guys because tickets were so expensive that I didn't see a lot of husband-wife things. It was more guys going with their friends because everybody only bought their own ticket because it was so expensive. So if you were seeing a grandfather take their grandchild, you're getting a whole different crowd out of that and selling more tickets. That's great.
We had whole families, which
There
was
a family,
really nice.
and I
Yeah.
think that Paul loved it very much. I mean, very much. I remember he really loved it because he never. When you see all this young audience sitting on the front of the stage and singing your songs and they stay there, I mean, it was really exciting, and I think very refreshing as well for an artist when you see you change over the generation. You've been able to still bring in the young people to listen to your music. It was very exciting, and I think Paul was just very happy. I mean, everyone was very happy, but we had a lot of young people to the show. Definitely. People keep the message. And I think also people not only get the message, I think it was really, as I did with my young kids, many people did with their kids. Hey, you have to come to see this because one day you're going to say you were part of the history. That was the closest things you can hear about the Beatles. And to hear the Beatles song from Paul McCartney singing it, hey.
That's the real deal.
That's the real deal.
And the closest you're going to get.
It's the closest you're going to get. And one day maybe you don't appreciate it now as much. You will appreciate it when you get old. Say, oh, I went to see the show. Because the emotion to them to get across the way when you live this kind of experience really is exciting because, you know, the kids, the young, is different than the way we look at things, you know, like, and as I say, my young kids, you know, is like thrilled, they loved it. And since after they see the show, he wanted to discover because, you know, the kids today also once they get something, also when they go somewhere, if you tell them, they start straight away, they go on internet and they'll start looking who it is, who is who, what is happening, what is the song, and the other one, they direct now. Before we don't know, you have to get to the vinilo, put it on. By the way, about the vinilo, I'm very proud now because and he helped me to buy a nice
vinyl. Talk about vinyl.
Oh, okay.
The comeback of vinyl.
The comeback of vinyl. You know, today we're so fast on this. When I go to my beach house and I sit down now, I created a space which I have my vinyl.
Do you see when you get to your beach house? Business has been good to you, Pino.
When I get there, and it's like such an amazing magic moment to put the vinyl on and let yourself go away. And now I have all the vinyl in my room, like full everywhere, and put it on, and take it out of the thing, and put it on the record.
And drop the needle down?
Drop the needle down. It's an amazing, and they're really like, in a way, some of them, they're really mono. The way I see was recorded it, and you go to that sort of experience in music.
Who's your favorite piece of vinyl? If you're going to listen to some music, what's that first album you go to if you're going to open a bottle of wine?
Kind of Blue, Miles Davis. That's my favorite.
I'd be Simon and Garfunkel, Sounds of Silence.
No, this one to me is like amazing. You get there, like you get to get it going the way. You know, you get your glass of red wine and just. But actually, the discovering that sound again, this pleasure of the music to connect with the music is beautiful. I mean, and I think it's very unfortunate that today because very few people really has the opportunity to really listening to those masterpieces. You know, Genesis, Foxtrot, Dark Side of the Moon. It's very difficult to find someone really appreciate because, you know, making an album is a lot of work, is a lot of creativity, it's a lot of passion, it's a lot of night torments many artists go through. And it's very sad when the album finished. Really, they put one song out if the song sticks.
The albums, they come and go now. It's not like they used to be.
Before you have an album, you listen one and one again. You were getting every song, each song of them, you were getting part of you. Today, that's just, unfortunately, is no longer there. Really, whatever guys are listening to you now, definitely give them an advice and to go back to really listening to some of legendary albums. And go through all of them. Get a nice glass of wine, sit down and listen.
All right, so what are those legendary albums? Give me your favorite 5. We know Miles Davis.
Miles Davis is one. Then I had Jimi Hendrix, Fox Lady, which is one of my all-time favorites as well. It was part of me. And Rolling Stones with Angie and Led Zeppelin. Actually, I say Genesis, I loved it. Neil Young, I loved Herbert Stone. I had that album on me like 1,000 times, like listening onto it. You know, was that really music? I have a lot of them. There is more than 5. I have a lot of them.
Yeah, it goes on for days.
He knows top 5. This is great.
I love music. Music is something which can get you goes and fly and dreams. I think is most of the project I create and I work. It's been done about night without sleep and listening to music.
Before I let you go, The traffic in your market now just comes. You get a ton of volume. Acts want to play your market. There's no question. But that wasn't the case. 40 years ago, you probably had to convince these big international acts to come play your market. That had to be a trick. How did you convince these huge monster acts to come to Spain?
It's only one way. You do the good job, people hear your names, they won't work for you, and they come to Spain. And it was on the time of, as I say, in the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, we not only were doing the big acting in Spain, we were broadcasting from Spain for the world, which was amazing. It was an amazing time, and there was an amazing things. I think the passion is one of the things moves. I had a lot of passion. I still remain have a lot of passion. You believe, as I say, you believe in dreams. You believe what you want to achieve, you will get there. And this business, unfortunately, means it comes and go, and you are as good as your last show. Your past history doesn't mean anything in this business today, except your experience. And if you're able to survive to get through, only the passion still remains to break barriers and bring you to the next level of act.
Pino, I want to thank you so much for taking time and talking to us on Promoter 101.
Pleasure to be with you, and see you soon. We'll be around. We love rock and roll. We'll never die, and everyone is happy there. I still repeat, go back to the vinyl, sit down, go home, get a glass of wine, enjoy music. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Pino.
Pino is an icon, the biggest in his game in Spain. So glad we were able to make this interview happen, Luke. It really is a next level kind of thing.
This is Sean Striegel, Senior Vice President of Live Nation New York, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
Dan, we got some birthdays this week. June 22nd to the 28th, 2018.
Friday the 22nd, Bare Naked Ladies, original singer Stephen Page, and Do It Bookings, Margie Alban.
Saturday the 23rd, wishing a happy birthday to Nathan Carson and Ralph Marquetta.
Sunday, Eric Blocky, Mark David, The Paramounts, Chris Goddard, and Jason Comfort.
Monday, we're wishing a happy birthday to Kevin Yulstad, Victor Siegel, Buck Williams, and Matt Butler.
Tuesday, Mark Lambelet, Paul Bassman, and Dolph Ramsey.
On Wednesday, wishing a happy birthday to Sean Striegel, Rick Wetzel, and Harlan Fry.
Thursday, Lee Anderson. He gets the day to himself because he's just that badass.
Wishing you all a happy birthday from all the gang at Promoter 101.
This is Dave Shapiro, Mike Mills,
Sam Hunt, Joey Scolari,
Rich Best,
Tim Sweetwood,
Andy Levitt,
Sarah Beasley,
Jared Paul, Bobby Clay, Jon Phillips,
Greg Pomley,
Harvey Cohen,
Rich Schaefer.
This is Eric Mayers, and I am live
on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
You're listening to Promoter 101.
That'll do it for episode 88 of Promoter 101. Thank you so much for tuning in. Big shout out to all of our guests in the show today. Jon Phillips from Silverback Artist Management, Pino Sagliocco from Live Nation Spain, and the Broadberry's Lucas Fritz. We appreciate you all tuning in. If you liked what you heard here and want to give us some feedback, shoot us an email, Steiny@Promoter101. That'll hit both Dan and I. We want to hear from you.
The quote of the week comes to us from Taylor Swift. A letdown is worth a few songs. A heartbreak is worth a few albums.
We'll be back next week with a brand new episode of Promoter 101 with C3's Bobby Clay and DSW's David Simone, the manager of the Piano Guys.
Hey, we want to thank everybody and wishing you sold out shows for the weeks to come. Cheers.
Dawn Holiday, Promoter 101.